There's no second best. Take all your money, buy Bitcoin.
You can wake up every morning and say GM.
GM. GM. Today is Thursday, the 5th. What the fuck? What's going on in Velo? 5th of September. And Velo has completely reset for some reason. So maybe if they log back in. Boom. There we go. Because we got the usual. So Bitcoin is doing the very typical Bitcoin thing of just bleeding back down. It came up yesterday. It touched off this 57,245 or 225. What is it? 224, yeah. Moved up into the area. Obviously, we had the pivot level above. Perfect retest of that 58.3, 58.4 pivot, which had been acting as more of a support almost. And then now it's spending more time below it. So we seem to be in distribution heading lower. We got that strong squeeze up. We got a failure to return. And then we got a breakdown. Back right down to the New York Open level, which is 130 over here. And exactly, it's a terrible line. I'm much better than that. Right back down to where New York Open happened. And just a full retracement. And that's the kind of market we're in at the moment. Literally textbook mean reversion. Any moves, large gaps in either direction are failing. So the way you know that this is distribution and why it's most likely to go lower is because the gaps that are getting left behind, right, are to the downside. So when you see the market moving like this, okay, so let's go all the way back to here. Market pumps with a sharp move. It retraces and then it fills in slowly. And then we gap down, we break down. So the pump filled back in entirely. Then we broke down. This breakdown was not able to be retested yet. So that's a sign of supply. We then had this breakdown here. Look at this gap. This gap was also not able to be retested fully. Price tried to jump into it, push into it, push into it. Then it broke down again. And this gap from this area here, if you look at the gaps, by the way, it's these parts where the market doesn't come back and retest. Was unable to be retested. And so although you see price bouncing, what you're really seeing is the breakdown here. That gap filled in, but the one above didn't. So again, if Bitcoin is not able to come up and fill that, you expect, and then of course the move up from yesterday filled in again very quickly. And so we've left a gap behind here. So maybe we're going to see the same thing. Maybe we're going to see price squeeze up. Well, more likely it's probably going to grind sideways up into that area and then fall over. Again, until something else changes, which doesn't seem to be the case yet, this is just quite simply going lower. And there doesn't need to be a huge amount of, you don't need to like go much further than that to really understand what's going on here. But a couple chart levels I want you to look at. The 4-hour downtrend on the EMAs, right? You'll notice this, that we keep pushing above, back below, pushing above, back below, pushing above, back below. This value area, post breakdown, we're obviously trading now well outside it. If I actually take this off, you'll see. I want to take off everything except that part. There we go. Let's take this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this. Anyway. There we go. So price have been consolidating in here. We then lose that level. We've now rejected it. So even this value area from this area, we're below. So again, these are all areas and levels that price needs to get back above to have any kind of bullish impulse again. The 4-hour trend, each time it pushes back above the bands, keeps rejecting. Then it was hitting the 50. Yeah, it hit the 50. Keeps selling off, making new lows, selling off, making new lows. So at this point, we can squeeze higher, absolutely. It does keep bouncing from these levels, absolutely. But it seems to be filling the gaps to the upside, but not the downside. So it'll leave, like, typical. It'll leave 2 gaps, right? 1, 2. And on the upside bounce, it will fill one of them, and it won't fill the other. And then it'll leave a gap, and it'll fill one of them, but not the other. I mean, it's just, so far at least, it's pretty standard downtrend kind of nature. So we'll see. We'll see how that develops. And I don't need this. I don't think it's going to go sideways like that, but obviously the idea is the longer we spend below this pivot, the more bearish it becomes. Let's go back over to Feb 2021 and then zoom it in. And there we are. Now, value area. This was Tuesday. And then we had Sunday. So we can see this week's. So this is this week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and now we're into Thursday. This is this week's developing value area, which actually, interestingly, we are trying our best to hold the value area low. So that, coupled with the fact that this is, believe it or not, potentially an early uptrend, right? You have to be aware of that. Low, high, potentially high or low. So not a place to be going fucking max short. But below there, I would say pretty much, yeah, right? If we lose this level and start to trade down here, that's probably when it's going to break down. Otherwise, you're looking at this typical squeeze and retrace and squeeze and retrace, squeeze and retrace. And today we have, what's today? Fucking services PMI. Little bit, but not much. I wouldn't say it's super important. Tomorrow, very, 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 very important data. Unemployment data, non-farm payroll, or unemployment rate, and the employment data, non-farm payroll, etc., etc., etc. There's a non-farm payroll estimate that comes out on a Wednesday. Where is that? No, it's today. This is like I think this is like an estimated advance change for non-farm. So you see here, the actual confirmation of non-farm is tomorrow. That's the proper confirmed rate. But then there's like basically an advanced prediction, early look, 2 days ahead of the other one. So keep an eye on that. That's 12:15. Then there's unemployment claims at 12:30. So there's enough data to trade around today. The JOLTS job openings actually was part of a decent trade yesterday. A lot of this is just because it comes during the New York session though. So I don't think the job openings themselves were what caused this really nice move yesterday, which is the move up. I think it's more just the fact that timing. And what are we looking at here? Also, 50, 100, 200. We are in a straight up 1 hour downtrend. So again, when you see like something similar to what we saw over here, where you're in this 1 hour downtrend with the 50, 100, 200 are all in bearish formation, you have to wait for that to resolve. It resolves by price coming back and spending more time within the bands than it does below. So you can see here, push up in the bands, it rejects, but that holds and then we go up again. You see something potentially similar happening here. Again, we've rejected, but if it starts to climb back in, basically, if we get above the pivot, which is very simple, right, and we get towards the value area high of this week, that's a pretty clear sign that we're at least going for these highs. Maybe we're going for 61.6, which, by the way, all of that is still fair game. You know, it's not difficult for Bitcoin to continue spending time here. Don't mistake the fact that we put in a decent attempt to reverse yesterday. Not that it's a very strong reversal candle, but bit of demand there, retesting a previous order block, which is a pretty significant one. It wouldn't be hard for Bitcoin to hold here and just push up a bit, even if it's bearish, right? It's not, you know, like, it's not difficult for markets, even in bearish times, to bounce. Even here, like double bottom has a squeeze up before going lower. Over here, I mean, you've seen this. How many times does it bounce and bounce and bounce and bounce and bounce? And of course, that turns out to be bullish. And even over here, these keep bouncing and bouncing and bouncing and bouncing before it breaks down. So whether it's bullish or bearish, it's really not that difficult. I mean, here's something to compare it to. Not that price will do this, but to give you an idea of the scale, which actually, you know what? I'll finish with this. Or I'll check some else, but first of all, obviously, you don't compare fractals expecting price to play out the same, because show me 2 times where it's ever fucking happened. It doesn't happen. But what is interesting here is the time element, right? So both of these are in periods where Bitcoin is relatively bearish. Moves down, moves down, moves down, okay? Price moves down. You have a pump, and you have a pump here, which rejects and comes back into support. That's the only bit that matters to me, right? You have a pump that rejects and comes back into support. Back into support. Look how long it takes for Bitcoin to go sideways. That's all I'm saying here. I'm not saying it will do this, but how many times, this is definitely the type of market we have, where people talk about, oh, it's just day traders only, it's just low volatility. No. At the moment, we have good trading conditions. This kind of stuff here, this 21st September to fucking really till the 24th of October, so for a whole month, that is AIDS. Painful, horrible, brutal. Nothing worth trading. Like, fucking nothing. A range from 18.2 to 20.4. For a month. That kind of stuff is fucking brutal. And it's more about time. Like, again, if you're comparing this, we're like here. We're literally like there. And so imagine for the next month, which, by the way, the closer we get to the election, the more likely it is for the market to not move. If you're saying that this is a very uncertain election where, you know, it's really what happens after that matters, then we might not move that much pre-election. I hope we move a lot. I don't care if we go down or up. I just want volatility. As a trader, it needs to go down a lot or up a lot. That's all that matters to us. But just be mentally prepared for that. Where this could actually go sideways for a month. Or just a week or 2 weeks. You know, again, we're not putting time frames on it. Oh, by the way, this almost certainly won't happen, meaning a month, because obviously we've got the rate cut coming on the 18th of September, which is not next Wednesday, is it? It's 13 days away. It's 2 weeks away. I could absolutely see some mini version of this shit where it just drifts sideways until the rate cut, because everyone's uncertain. So why would you sell loads of Bitcoin? Why would you buy loads of Bitcoin before the big rate cut event that everyone's waiting on? So I probably will repeat this and continue to repeat it because it's super important in these times. I think I have a duty at times like this to remind you that better days are ahead. Whether it's a bull trend or a bear trend, it doesn't matter. Trends are ahead. I guarantee any of you that are actually learning how to trade, this kind of shit is fun. This is great to trade. There's great downtrends. There's even good bounces. For people who trade long only, there's great bounces. Right? At least the market's moving. This is not fun. This is not fun. And all of this is obviously super fun. So when you're looking at like what comes next, just play it logically. The next big move is going to be driven by either the reaction to rate cuts and or the reaction to the election. So that's the end of September and that's the start of November. There's a 6-week period in between them where anything could happen. You've had rate cuts, you haven't had the election. Trump sentencing for his fucking whatever bullshit charge it was is on the same day as the rate cut, by the way. That's the 18th of September. Volatility's coming. Big trends are coming. Whether it's up or down, who gives a shit? We can trade it. But that probably means if ever there's going to be a period where not much happens, or we just go lower, because that's what tends to happen if nothing happens, it's going to be the next 2 weeks. So, sit tight. ETH. Someone asked me about ETH yesterday. I'm going to do altcoin requests today as well, by the way. If you're new or haven't seen it yet, that's where at 4 p.m. UTC today, I go through your altcoin requests, as the name would suggest. I will open the channel up 1 hour before the stream and take in your requests. Someone asked me about ETH And Bitcoin, do I think they can go to all-time high this year or this cycle or something like that? My answer is simple. Bitcoin, yes. ETH, no. And that's not a prediction. That's just my current thoughts. My current thoughts can and will change. But the problem is, ETH made a lower high, below its old all-time high, significantly, and has then had multiple structure breaks. Whereas high, into a low, into a lower high, into a lower low, and it's broken down and it's holding down here. So ETH is more likely to go to 1,000 than it is to go to all-time high from here. And that's not even, like, at least to me, that's not even remotely controversial to say. ETH is more likely to go to 1,000 than it is to go to 4,000, 5,000, based on this chart setup. If it's able to break structure to the upside again and start to make higher highs and higher lows, then sure. But until then, it's had a move up, which is like a corrective move sideways, a breakout from that corrective move, a full retracement of that move. So imagine this was a 1 hour chart. What I'd be expecting is some kind of sideways and then further down. There's a gap above, maybe it fills that. But honestly, it looks like it's going to go back into these inefficiencies below. And, I mean, it's going to be kind of fucking brutal if ETH goes back there. That's the way the chart's looking right now. So anyway, there's your bit of daily ETH bear porn. It was just in response to the question. But Bitcoin, no, Bitcoin's totally different. At least for now. Bitcoin made an all-time high. That's important. It shows there's demand through there, even though we obviously rejected it initially. And it's currently holding this structure above the previous weekly levels. And so Bitcoin is just holding up better. Still, obviously it's not amazing, but it's definitely much better. GM. Actually. The S&P. Yeah, stocks are starting to pull back a little bit. Nothing too crazy. But I think that probably the pre-election chop begins. GM.